We are officially in the United States capital of Washington, D.C. for the next 4 days, and it's going to be an epic trip. I'm so excited.
You're gonna have to cut that.
So let's start with where to stay. We went during the first week of April, which is one of the busiest times in DC out of the entire year. I think this is because of cherry blossom season, which starts towards the end of March and ends around mid-April. I imagine this drives up prices by quite a bit, so if you're thinking of coming around that time, do yourself a favor and book early. We stayed at Hotel aka Washington Circle, which is a newer hotel in downtown DC and is only about a 20 to 30 minute walk from most attractions. We checked in late at night because of our flight, and the receptionist gave us complimentary glasses of champagne, which was a really nice touch. We stayed on the 5th floor. The room they gave us was 350 square feet with a king bed and a balcony. I love the decor theme with the white and the yellow. It just gave very clean, bright vibes. And this was our view from the balcony. Not bad at all. The hotel also has a restaurant called A Kitchen Plus Bar with delicious breakfast. The next thing to be aware of is the weather. Leading up to this trip, I was regularly checking the weather forecast because it was just jumping around all over the place. One day it would be like 40 something degrees, and then I would check the next day and it would be like 80 something. So I wasn't totally sure what to expect, but I just figured it would be a little chilly, and I was wrong. The first 2 days were humid, warm, and drizzling. Fortunately, I had a couple of dresses with me, which worked out. The last 2 days, however, dipped below 40 degrees. Not being used to that weather, I was freezing. So if you're coming here near the start of spring or when the weather is transitioning, just do yourself a favor and bring a nice mix of clothes. So what can you actually do in DC? There is so much to do in this city. I think what DC does better than 99% of touristy cities is that it makes so many things free, and that includes some of the most famous museums in the city. But to start, the first thing you should do is just walk around. DC is very walker friendly. You can get to most places in 30 minutes or less. From our hotel in Washington Circle, we were also about a 15-minute walk from the White House. That's actually the first major site we saw, and we had a lot of anticipation, and it was all right.
So, do you want to take a picture?
No.
It's nice. It's just that they have like 3 rows of barricades blocking it off, which I didn't think was a thing. I thought it was just like the gates, but maybe I'm wrong. And they also have like this little garden here, but I mean, it's okay. I guess I just expected a little bit more given that this is like in front of the White House, so it was a little anticlimactic. But hey, we took some pictures, and I guess that's one thing checked off the, I wouldn't say it was on my bucket list really, but it's something we did.
If you're looking for something more exciting, you might really enjoy a dupe called the People's House. More on that later. Let's get into more museums. We had the experience of a lifetime when we visited the National Museum of African American History and Culture, aka the Blacksonian. For starters, you'll need to get tickets, and it's best to reserve them online in advance. I did see some people who showed up without a ticket and they were still able to get one pretty easily, but just to make things easier for yourself, just get them online. They advise you to start on the lower levels, and from the very first exhibit down there, you're taken on a journey through centuries of Black history that is heartbreaking, inspiring, sobering, and powerful all at once. The first part details the beginning of the slave trade and gives you a better idea of who was involved and what the victims went through. They really make sure you feel the weight of this history. You're seeing and reading accounts from real people who strive through the terrors of slavery. I love that you really get a true, detailed sense of what they went through, from the Middle Passage to the Civil Rights Movement and even beyond. You're getting quotes from real people that capture the spirit of the times and the grit that Black people needed to have to survive. You're also seeing these fantastic and jarring visuals and artifacts that tell a story all on their own. It really feels like a living museum where you're going through the generations of struggle and progress of Black people. Not even just in America, but I think they also do a decent job of showing the impacts and the faults of other colonizing nations. You really do need at least 2.5 hours here. This is the kind of place where you're going to be slowing down, reading more than usual, and really thinking about what you're seeing. This is by far the most complete collection and retelling of Black American history I've seen. I truly hope it can stay as it is in all its truth without outside interference, if you know what I'm talking about. And man, when we finally reached the top floor where the culture section is, just wow. It was like stepping into a celebration of Black brilliance. I love these statues here especially. I'm sure you can guess who they are. This museum is a must, not a maybe or a someday. It doesn't matter what culture you're from, put it on your list if you're visiting DC. After that emotional deep dive, we needed a bit of a breather, so we made our way back outside and decided to keep walking through National Mall, starting with the Washington Monument. And oh my gosh, I was not prepared for how huge this thing is. It's 500 feet tall, and during our trip, I felt like it was the epicenter of DC. Apparently you can also get tickets to go inside the monument, but we felt a walk by was satisfying enough. We then walked about 5 minutes over to the next site, the World War II Memorial. It's beautifully done, centered around a large mountain with 56 granite pillars representing every US state and territory at the time. Then, right next door was the reflecting pool. It looks like we visited DC during prom season because there was this huge group dressed to the nines, taking pics like it was a red carpet. But I still managed to snag my own shot with that iconic background. Alas, we made it to the Lincoln Memorial. It was definitely packed in here, but standing in front of that towering statue of Lincoln, you really get a sense of the gravitas. If you look closely, his hands are sculpted in a way that some people believe subtly signs the letters A and L in American Sign Language. Whether that's true or not, it's still a cool thought. From here, we made our way over to the Korean War Veterans Memorial. It's very eerie seeing all these statues of fallen soldiers almost looking frozen in time. You can even see all the names of those who fought in the war engraved into this wall that wraps around the whole memorial. A little further on, we reach one of my favorite sites, the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. It kind of sneaks up on you. You enter between these two huge stone slabs, then suddenly you turn around and there he is, Dr. King, carved into what looks like a stone pulled from a mountain. It's not flashy, but it's very bold and powerful. And right next to his memorial is the famous tidal basin, home of DC's most beloved cherry blossom trees. We missed peak bloom by about a week, so the petals weren't as pink and fluffy as the photos you see online, but honestly, it was still beautiful. At this point, we had about 20 minutes until our reservation at one of the top-rated restaurants in DC called Dogon. And it just so happened that we were also exactly 20 minutes away, but we could not figure out how to walk there. Coming from the tidal basin, we had come the back way, and the back doors to the hotel do not open, so we had to walk all the way around to the front of the hotel. But once we got there, it was well worth it. The restaurant serves Afro-Caribbean food with a bit of an upscale spin. You can order an appetizer to start, along with some small plates and large plates. We went with the cornbread for the appetizer, which was melt-in-your-mouth amazing. We also got the highly recommended curry branzino. I didn't get a proper video of it because we ate it so fast. But my absolute favorite was the rum cake. I've never had rum cake before, but I just know this was the best dessert I've had at any restaurant. I would come back to DC just to try that rum cake again. The next day, we took a drive out to the Capitol Hill neighborhood and started the day with breakfast at the Duck and the Peach. We had some kava, which is really just sparkling wine here, and for my birthday, they brought out this delicious cornbread pastry with a cute little candle on it. It looks like on Saturday mornings, they also have like a little market on the same street as a restaurant where you can shop for some cute and fun clothes and other knickknacks. But we soon headed off for our first tour of the day, which was the Library of Congress. We got time tickets online, and even then they do warn you to come about 15 minutes early. We did not do that. We showed up right when our booking started, and there was indeed a 15-minute wait, but it didn't seem to matter because they just let us in anyways, even though we're 15 minutes late. I don't think they checked the time, so I guess it doesn't matter. You can come whenever. But still, just to be safe, just book online anyways. And this place is stunning. It's not a traditional library packed with books, but from the moment you walk in, it's beautiful with high ceilings, gorgeous art, and overall very grand architecture. It's giving palace meets museum meets art gallery. There's also a cool exhibit space that I think is part of the actual library portion. It's full of interesting facts, documents, and pieces of history. If you're into learning quirky tidbits and seeing how knowledge has been preserved through time, you'll love it. And of course, like any good tourist attraction, there's a gift shop. Directly across from the Library of Congress was my personal favorite tour of the day, the Capitol. And yes, it's that Capitol building. So to get a tour of the Capitol, you really should book in advance online and get a time slot. It's not required, but when I tried to look about 2 weeks earlier before we went, all of the slots were booked up. They do release a limited amount on the day of the tour, so you can probably snag one of those, but just to minimize any stress, just get them in advance online or look out for those same day passes and book them online. This is another place where you're going to be waiting in line, even with a timed ticket. So long as you get there within a time range that's close to the time on your ticket, you should be fine. But the wait in this line was about 20 minutes or so. Once you're inside, they'll put you in a group of about 15 to 20 people and assign your group a tour guide. It's kind of loud in the building because there's so many different groups, but fortunately they give you headsets so you can hear your guide perfectly. The tour itself lasts about 45 minutes to an hour. I remember visiting 3 areas in the building, starting with this room of pillars, which is actually supposed to be a crypt. There are no human remains in here, but it does contain 13 statues representing the original colonies. The next place we went to was probably my favorite. This is the Rotunda. The art in here is gorgeous. Up at the very top on the ceiling is this beautiful painting that represents George Washington ascending into the heavens, surrounded by figures that represent liberty, authority, victory, and fame. Also take time to admire all the rest of the paintings in here, which are much closer to the ground. All the groups rotate throughout the room, so you'll get a good look at every painting on the wall. The last spot we visited was the National Statuary Hall collection. These statues here are of prominent deceased Americans, and each state contributes up to 2 statues. So our guide made a little game out of asking us which state we were from and pointing out a statue in the room. There are currently only 35 statues in this hall, so not every state is represented, but again, the artistry here is amazing. Overall, I'd highly recommend doing a tour of the Capitol building. I actually enjoyed it significantly more than the tour of the Library of Congress. After leaving the Capitol, we decided to just walk around for a little bit, but what we weren't expecting was to walk right into a protest. As you might expect, protests are quite common in the nation's capital, which is the center of its politics. But as we kept walking toward our next destination, we realized there were protests being held throughout the entire city. And we came across multiple people holding signs addressing other topics and, well, interesting polarizing figures. Some people, like this guy, went all out. After a short stroll, we headed to our next destination, the National Museum of Natural History. You can't get tickets here, you just have to wait in line, but the line moves extremely fast. I highly advise you to allocate enough time to get through this place though. It's huge, it has a lot of sections, and there's way too much to look at. Every room felt like a whole world of its own. We ultimately decided to leave early with the intention of coming back because there were just too many people when we went on a Saturday in the afternoon. Try coming early in the morning, preferably during a weekday. Afterwards, we headed off toward another restaurant reservation to Thip Khao, a restaurant that serves food from Laos. It was about an hour walk away, which we figured we could do, but about 30 minutes in, we realized we would miss our reservation, so we tried to order an Uber and, well, it didn't really work out. We tried over and over again to order an Uber or a Lyft, but we were having no luck. I'm assuming it was because the drivers thought we were too close to where the protests were and where road closures were. But we had actually walked quite a ways away from everything that was going on. We would find out later, though, that the Ubers and Lyfts and just any ride sharing service can be a little bit unreliable in this city. This actually happened again when we were trying to get to another reservation in the evening. So just be aware of that. You can also like hail a taxi. That's what we ended up having to do to get to another reservation later on in this trip. But in the case of Thip Cow, we realized that we just weren't gonna make it, so we canceled the reservation and we just kept walking in hopes that we would come across some other restaurant that would be just as good. And fortunately, we were heading in the right direction. We walked into the northwestern part of 14th Street, which is where you can find a huge mix of restaurants, cocktail bars, and boutiques. So we settled for this Vietnamese restaurant called Doi Moi. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it ended up being extremely tasty. After that, we walked over to a wine bar with great service and drinks and relaxed there until about 10 p.m. when we went back to our hotel. If you're looking for some more interesting restaurants, we went to a few others I have to recommend. The first is Founding Farmers, which you might have already heard about if you've done some DC research. You can eat all 3 meals here, but we went for breakfast. This place gets packed, so please reserve a table beforehand, but if you're like us, you can always find a spot at the bar. We had a typical American breakfast here, but what I loved and will definitely return for are these delicious French toast strips. A lot of restaurants do not know how to do French toast, but these were some of the best I've ever had. Next, if you want a unique Filipino-inspired spin on breakfast, I also recommend the Purple Patch. I ordered something savory, which was the fried eggs over sausage with a side of rice, and my mom went with their fried chicken and waffles. It even comes with a small scoop of purple ice cream, which is also a Filipino dessert. The restaurant staff was also very kind to put out this cute happy birthday sign for me, along with this tasty muffin. Now for dinner, I highly recommend a visit to Swahili Village for some East African food. We actually came here twice because the food was so good. You can get dishes like suya, goat meat, jollof rice, and so much more. The spices they use here just elevate the food immensely. I also got this interesting cocktail that's delivered to your table on fire. It's great for the gram and TikTok and all of that, but the drink itself, which was a margarita, was actually pretty good too. This place for sure deserves way more popularity, so go check it out if you want some unique food. But speaking of unique food, we couldn't leave DC without going to Albi. Now, this is one of the hardest reservations to get in the city, and I was actually pretty fortunate to be able to snag one at the perfect time. Though I will say that our experience here was bittersweet. For one, the sweet part was the food, which is Palestinian cuisine and was even more amazing and insanely tasty than I thought it would be. You can order meals here a la carte, but a lot of people opt for the sofra, which includes multiple courses of food brought to your table. They give you a ton of food, and I don't mean only small plates of food for each course. I mean, they're giving you decent sized portions, and the food just kept coming and coming. The experience was about 3 hours long, and we had so much food we needed a to-go bag, which I wasn't expecting. But I will never forget the distinct, exceptional flavors they infused their food with. So amazing. However, the bitter part of this experience was the price. This is a Michelin-starred restaurant, so I knew it was going to be a bit of a splurge coming in, but we definitely splurged a little too hard. But overall, if you can afford it, I highly recommend booking a reservation as soon as they're available and going. Last but not least, another one of my favorite experiences was visiting this interactive museum of the White House called the People's House. It's literally a minute walk away from the actual White House, and as many activities are in DC, it's totally free. You start with a short presentation of the history of the White House, including a rather vivid depiction of its destruction by fire in 1814. Then you can move on to this exhibit that lets you click a room in the White House and see a quick animation about it. Similarly, there's another room where you can just touch a white circle on the wall that corresponds to an item or a place in the White House, and it gives you an animation with a nice rundown of its significance. One of my favorite parts, though, was getting to take my rightful place on the throne of the United States. I'm currently sitting in the Oval Office at the president's desk. Don't worry, America. President Christina's got you. I don't know in detail how the real Oval Office looks, but this one felt very official to me. Maybe one day I'll see the real thing, but if not, this was good enough. This next interactive part was also a very nice touch. You can basically touch the screen and it'll activate a video of a White House staff member explaining their role for about 30 seconds. My favorite part of this room, though, was the photo booth exhibit. You can choose from about 9 places on the White House grounds, pose for a picture with the background, and get a somewhat realistic image. Then you just input your email and they send you the photos for free. There's even more you can see here that I won't spoil, but I think this is also just a great experience for anyone, from solo travelers to couples to families. There's also, of course, an obligatory gift shop on the bottom floor where you can get some cool stuff. Overall, I really enjoyed the 4 days my mom and I spent together in DC. It was such a meaningful bonding time and a great way to celebrate my birthday, but beyond that, I genuinely think everyone should visit their nation's capital at least once. Walking through DC's museums, monuments, and neighborhoods gave me a deeper view into American history, both the parts I already knew and the parts I didn't. It was eye-opening in a lot of ways. DC feels like a reflection of the country itself in a lot of ways. It's a place with a complicated past and a complicated present, but it's also full of resilience and diversity and progress. It's not perfect, but it's real, and there's a lot to take in if you're willing to look. I sincerely hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.